You probably heard that it's time to slow down, to expect delays and blocks. But what if I told you that Saturn retrograde is actually one of the best opportunity to move faster towards your goals? While everyone else is hitting the pause button out of fear, you could be using the slowdown to become more aligned with your goals. Because this is the thing about Saturn, it doesn't stop you to punish you, it stops you to prepare you. Have you thought about why some people come out of retrograde periods being more powerful than ever? It all comes down to understanding one interesting paradox. Welcome back to Path of Radiance. On this channel, we don't just talk about astrology as a tool to predict the future, but instead we use it to understand ourselves more better. So if you're here to live more intentionally, then you're at the right place. So let me ask you something. When you think of Saturn retrograde, what comes to your mind? Probably delays, obstacles, or things going wrong. Right? That's because we've all been conditioned to think of retrograde periods as problematic periods because people like to spread fear. But what if that's not the way retrograde works? Take this for example. So when a Formula One driver pulls into a pit stop during a race, do you think they're falling behind? It might look that way from the sides and you might be thinking, oh my god, why are they stopping for so long? Why are they not moving? But in reality, what's happening is really strategic. They are getting new tires, they are refueling and making any other changes that's needed to help them dominate the rest of the race. Now compare this to another team who didn't probably do the pit stop. They might look like they might go faster in the moment, but in the overall race, they will fail. And this is exactly how it works in life too. There'll be times when everything seems to slow down or stop and we might not like it at that time. But later on we realize that it was exactly what we needed. Maybe you didn't get that job that you really wanted, but you found something much better later. Or a relationship ended, but it created space for someone who is more aligned to enter into your life. That's exactly what Saturn retrograde is bringing in right now. It's not a punishment, it's like a pit stop. Saturn operates with so much more wisdom and long-term vision than we give it credit for. When Saturn appears to slow things down, it's actually asking you a very important question. Is what you're building have a strong foundation to work long-term? So is it just about discipline and structure then? No, it's much more than that. Saturn is like your accountant, the accountant for your karmic records. And when Saturn goes retrograde, it's actually doing a spiritual audit of everything that you've done in your life. Generally, we don't like it, but that's exactly what most of us need in this life. Saturn governs time, karma, and integrity. And when it's moving forward, Saturn is helping you build and create in the external world. But when it goes retrograde, Saturn's energy turns inwards. It's like now the focus is on how well you are internally aligned in your life. You can't fake your way forward during a Saturn retrograde. Yes, if you've been very well disciplined and have built a great solid foundation, great. But if your foundation is shaky and if you've been cutting corners or avoiding responsibility or building something that's not authentically you, Saturn will shake that foundation until you make real changes there. But here's the good part. This is not a punishment. Saturn is saying, I want you to succeed so much that I'm going to make sure you're building on something real, not with the fakey foundation. So when things slow down or feel stuck during this time, the question to ask is not, why is this happening to me? It is, what is this delay trying to teach me? Because even though this might go against the common knowledge, Saturn doesn't create obstacles. It just shows you where you need to clean up energy leaks before you actually go big on your dreams. Now, the Saturn's audit process follows a very specific pattern that once you understand it, it completely changes how you experience delays and setbacks. So let's talk about this idea of slowing down to speed up, because it's probably one of the most misunderstood aspects of retrograde energy. Retrograde doesn't mean reverse. It means we are in an inner reflection process. I'm sure you would be able to recall some time in your life where you try to skip some steps or take shortcuts or push forward even when you are not really ready. And what happened? Usually we ended up having to backtrack and actually do the things that we tried to avoid anyway, but now with even more complications. Saturn retrograde brings up all those places where we've been trying to skip the important steps. If you're in tech companies, you might know about retros. They do regular retros after every sprint. Do they consider it as a waste of time? No, it's a crucial time where we sit down and reflect on what needs to be changed on a very fundamental level so that we can be more efficient and more faster. This is exactly the same. The math of Saturn retrograde is delay plus reflection equals momentum. But knowing the math is only half the equation. But knowing the math is only half the equation. The other half is knowing exactly how to work with Saturn's energy instead of against it. And there are 3 specific questions that will help you with it. So how do we actually work with this energy? The key is understanding that you're not meant to react during this time. You are meant to reflect. Saturn retrograde is your chance to consciously mature. And maturity is not just about growing old. It is about taking responsibility for your energy, for your choices, and for your growth. I want you to sit with these 3 questions over the next few weeks. First, where am I cutting corners? Where in your life have you been trying to get results without doing the inner work? Second, what am I avoiding responsibility for? This might be uncomfortable, but Saturn loves accountability. What patterns, relationships, or situations have you been hoping would just resolve themselves? Third, what am I doing out of fear instead of purpose? Fear-based action never has the same energy as the purpose-driven action. Saturn wants you operating from purpose instead of trauma. As you're reflecting on these questions, pay attention to patterns that might show up, because you might notice that the same type of challenges appear in different areas of your life. If you're feeling forced to pause in any area of your life during this period, that's Saturn saying, look deeper. There is something here that needs your attention before you can move to the next level. When you lean into this pause instead of resisting it, you access your real power. So Saturn retrograde happened even last year. So what's different about this one? The difference is that it is happening in Pisces system, which sets up a very specific kind of energy. Saturn is currently moving in Pisces, which means we have structure meeting spirit, discipline meeting dreams. And if you go even one level deeper, Saturn is transiting through Uttara Bhadrapada, and this is a secret to why this retrograde can be your fastest track. Uttara Bhadrapada is known as the nakshatra of deep completion work that creates a lasting transformation. It's like Saturn's retrograde in this nakshatra is clearing your way for takeoff, but only if you do the inner work. Think about it this way. You know how your laptop slows down when it has so many programs running in the background? That's what happens to our manifestation power when we have lots of unfinished emotional business or unresolved patterns draining our energy in the background. We won't even be aware of it most of the time, but it is draining your energy. And Saturn's retrograde in Uttara Bhadrapada is drawing out exactly those energy drains. The repressed emotional karma or unfinished spiritual depths or any ancestral patterns even. This is not a time for new beginnings, and that's actually your competitive advantage, because while everyone else is trying to push forward with new projects and goals, you are sitting down and taking the time to look at all the things which are actually stopping you or slowing you down. Every unresolved issue in your life is like having an invisible anchor dragging you down. You might still move forward, but you're working so much harder than you need to. But if you close out those circles properly, completing those cycles, it's like cutting off those anchors. Suddenly, with the same amount of effort, you can create so much faster and bigger. The beautiful thing about Uttara Bhadrapada energy is that it's not just about personal completion, We're also being asked to clear generational patterns or any other family karma or ancestral wounds that are ready to be healed through us. So when you do this work consciously, you're not just freeing yourself, you're clearing and healing an ancestral pattern. So while others are wondering why their goals feel slow or stuck, you're here sitting systematically removing all the invisible barriers that's actually slowing down. And when this retrograde period ends, you won't just catch up with them, you will go so much far ahead because you now have more clarity. So this was a general overview about Saturn retrograde for everyone. Now, depending on your rising sign, Saturn is working through a completely different area of your life. I've made a separate video covering all 12 signs, which is coming up soon. I'll link it here once it's ready.